So recently, I spoke to a Total War content creator called Rampaned. If you don't know about this already, he has decided to lead a development effort to create a spiritual successor to Medieval 2 Total War. As a massive fan of the game himself, and as most of the content he creates are playthroughs of Medieval 2 and its mods like Tsardoms or Divide and Conquer, he has essentially decided enough is enough. If CA won't make a Medieval 3, then he will. I had the pleasure of talking to him about what he's planning, the various features he'd like to include in his game, the Total War titles and mods like DEI or Medieval Kingdoms 1212 he's drawing inspiration from, as well as new features he's thinking about like dynamic character traits that affect AI behavior in battle, or how to develop a more robust and engaging diplomacy system, and a campaign map that he's working on making right now, as you can see, to begin a foundation for the game from which he can start testing features like factions, cities, and procedurally generated battle maps and more. First of all, I think it's important to talk about context. What Creative Assembly and the community as a whole is going through is comparable to the launch of Rome 2 Total War, and in fact, could be said that it is worse. CA is clearly going through plenty of internal management issues. These issues are not only resulting in layoffs and canceled games in development, but they're also putting a lot of pressure on the CA employees that are there that have a lack of resource, especially community managers who have made some mistakes of late on places like the Total War forums and Steam discussions. The Rome 2 launch was a very similar time in that CA mismanagement of a game and its community was truly shocking, and it led to a major exodus of players and modders from the franchise, and I have no doubt that the same is happening here right now as well. So it makes complete sense to me that based on everything that's been happening, the majority of people now don't have any faith that CA can produce a creative, fun Total War game that's worth the money that they're asking for. Pharaoh certainly proved that, but for the first time, really, someone independently has decided that we should all stick it to CA and go our own way by essentially lighting a beacon around a concerted effort to make a Medieval 3 Total War that many would like to see. And that's not just another proof point of the community's fatigue of the series, the desire for a Medieval 3, but beyond that, it's a great example of how people just want to see a better game, a better Total War with improved battle mechanics, more engaging campaign gameplay. This is what people really want, and I really applaud Rampaned for taking the bull by the horns and trying to do it himself. So to get straight into it, Project Renaissance is all about creating a Medieval 3 Total War using Unreal Engine 5. What we have here is an extremely early version of the campaign map, and as you can see, it's very ambitious. It stretches from as far west as North America and as far east as India, so it's really quite a large map. And the planned start date is around the Norman invasion of Britain, so around 1066. The campaign's end date is going to be around the 1500s, so there's a massive timeline of medieval warfare here that covers the Crusades, the Reconquista, the Teutonic invasions, the rise of the Ottomans. There's just a lot of content to cover. My first impressions here, honestly, is that this is a really good way of showing the ambitious scope, the final vision of what the project is aiming to be, a bigger and better version of Medieval 2 in every way possible, and that's great. But this would really benefit, I think, from having a focused effort to begin with, which is what Rampaned is aiming to do. While work on the campaign map progresses to play around with terrain features and add cities, etc., he's mentioned to me that they will begin only by having two factions, I think the Saxons and the Normans, just to get a nice foundation, a template for how all the other features will work. So getting characters, army rosters, battle mechanics, everything up to par with how these two factions will work so that they can begin emulating this with other factions throughout the rest of the campaign. Having this narrow, focused effort, I think, to begin with is going to be really, really important to not be bogged down by the initial massive scale of the campaign. So this gives me a lot of hope. And from our conversations, what was really great to hear is his inspiration for a lot of the features he's planning for Project Renaissance. So, for example, Rome 2 Divide and Impera's population mechanics, or the building tree system in the Attila mod Medieval Kingdoms 1212 AD. There's a wealth of great proven work that modders have done over the years for various games, and he's using a lot of that to inform how he wants to go about how these features are going to work in his game. Which is great, of course. Things like cultural systems, recruitment systems, army supply mechanics, they all make playing the greatest mods so much fun. But they all have a fundamental flaw as well, and that is something that Rampaned is aware of, and that is that the AI is not affected by them. So one thing I really liked hearing about in this project is the ambition to have mechanics like these be affected and engaged by the AI, and remove the need for the AI to have cheats essentially to give the player a challenge. At its core, though, I would think of this as a proper sequel to Medieval 2 first and foremost, with plenty of features being drawn from other games and their mods as well. So, for example, settlements would have a clear distinction again between civil towns and cities and more militaristic castles and fortresses, but the surrounding regions would also have that dynamic minor town system that we love about Empire or Shogun 2, in that you could have farms and industrial centers and others dotted around that you can develop. Another good example is armies that, just like the original games, do not need to be attached to a general, so you can have a small force patrolling a border or going after bandits in your territory, while a larger army invades a rival kingdom. But added on top of that are layers from other games and inspirations as well: recruitment, area of recruitment, regional units that are specialized, as well as, of course, unique mercenary pools, everything coming together to be kind of a mesh of what Medieval 2 made great, as well as other mods and games that had little bits in here that you can borrow from. The most promising aspect, though, from our conversations, I think, are the battles. He really wants to revert back to a system of procedurally generated battle maps. So if you're next to a river on the campaign map, you'll have a battle alongside a river, and all of this would give your campaign movement strategic depth again, essentially, which is really, really good to hear. He wants to go back to the older battle health system so that when a cavalry unit charges into the back of some spearmen, multiple models will actually die. He wants to have siege battles be multi-layered again, with a focus on defensive advantage, as they should be, rather than the current system of the attackers will get into the settlement no matter what, so let's have tons of choke points, etc. With all of this in mind, it's so easy to see where current Total War battles fail, really, so to see the project identify those weaknesses and aim to improve on them is really promising. Now, of course, it's not all bells and whistles. There are certain things that I'm worried about as much as I am hopeful for. A technology tree would not really work well for a time period of over 4 centuries, and it's not something Rampaned has planned for the project, which I have mixed feelings about. But it is kind of a difficult trade-off to make, you know? Would you rather have a longer time period with dynamic tech development that basically happens to you through historical events, so taking away player choice essentially while giving you more variety in building and units, or a shorter time period, let's say 2 centuries, but with a tech tree to give you choice in terms of what area to develop, how to get an advantage over your rivals, and the opportunity cost of investing into research versus other gameplay features and elements? I also think there's a serious question of how the AI is going to handle all of this, how it's going to engage with everything here. A lot of the reasons why we've lost certain features, I think anyway, over the years, like generalist armies or agents or procedurally generated battle maps, are because the AI just didn't behave as intended with them. So it'll be interesting to see how the game tackles a variety of different mechanics with the ambition of having the AI engage with it all in a logical and meaningful way. Maybe CA are just too lazy to actually do it, which is why we haven't seen it in the series in a while, or maybe it just leads to too much uncertainty and unwanted behavior. Either way, AI is a big issue in Total War, so I would hate to see Project Renaissance suffer from similar issues as well. Finally, I think there's a really challenging balancing act here between fun, mechanically engaging gameplay, historically authentic gameplay, and visually immersive gameplay. Often you have to sacrifice one for the other. I mean, modern Total War games clearly lack a lot of strategic, meaningful mechanics for more visually immersive gameplay. And essentially, with an indie developed game, sacrifices are usually made a lot more than not. So I expect that balancing act is going to be very difficult to achieve here. Either way, though, I think personally speaking, visual immersion can definitely take a backseat in the process if it means having a mechanically fun and replayable game. Overall, Project Renaissance is really ambitious. For an indie game, it's scary ambitious, and I predict that the scope will get a bit smaller in scale of the map and the 4 centuries of history it wants to cover. But I have hope that with how much community feedback Rampaned is trying to get from the players, from people like Legend, and with big inspiration from earlier games in the Total War series, as well as some of the greatest mods, of course, like DEI or Tsardoms, I think there's a lot of promise here. I have personally spoken to Rampant to give him some of my thoughts about what a spiritual successor to Medieval 2 could be like, what it needs to correct in terms of improving on the current weaknesses in the Total War formula, giving him my perspective on some constructive thought and input. This early in the development of the project, I think this is one of the best ways we can help him and the team, give him our individual unique perspectives, support him with our own experiences, and hopefully all of this information can be used in a way to help him make Project Renaissance the best it can be. The other way, of course, is to support him directly. Follow his YouTube channel, jump into his Discord to find out more. If you have any development skills, see if you can get involved and spread the word. I think the more people that know about this, the better chances for support and success it has. And that's essentially it for today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you did, give it a like and drop any thoughts or questions in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you think about Project Renaissance, Rampant's ambitions for a spiritual successor to Medieval 2, and everything I've discussed here today. Subscribe to the channel for more Total War content just like this, for more development news about this game, and thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.